Hello, guys. It is Gilbert. This is a lecture on the first part of visual fluencies. And there's a really simple question to this. I'm going to keep these kind of short. I'm pretty sure something's going to go wrong, so just kind of expect that. One of the things I wanted to ask was, can pictures communicate more powerfully than, say, words can, or speech can, or does it just depend? So, for example, this is an image by an artist named Kati Kolwitz. And she did this piece when her sons were young, but she ended up losing a number of her sons in World War I and World War II. And it was almost like she could see what was going to happen. There's some text that's going to scroll, I hope. So if you guys want to read it, you can. I'm just going to let it go. So I'm going to... Okay, so can I make it go forward? How come I can't override? Oh my god, I can't. Almighty. Next slide. How do I get it? For Christ's sake. I wanted to do this image study again with you guys. This is an image by Richard Misrak, and he's a photographer of the of the West, the Southwest, and focused in the 80s and the 90s a lot on desert work. This is from a project that he did in the late 80s and early 90s. But this is from Desert Canto 6, and it's called The Pit. And I'm going to do the same thing, sort of let this sink in and think about what does this picture communicate. And then I'm going to play the words. And then you can go back and re-look at the image. And then I'll put some links to that project so you can learn more about it. And then what I'd like you to do is kind of compare what were your initial feelings about the image, and then what changed when you re-looked at it. So I know that this poem may or may not speak to you, but think of a poem that you may have that really moves you in some way. It could be also a letter that someone wrote you. And I realize this is kind of a weird and convoluted way of thinking about images, but what I'm getting toward is, or what I'm moving toward is the notion that this communication is a kind of a combination of a structure or a code, right? I don't know where that number 1 came from. But we seem to be really good at reading versions of reality, or at least stand-ins for reality, that are made on this flat surface. And questions that artists have been asking for a long time are, what's the correlation between how we're looking at this world and the flat stuff that we liked to keep it still on? For example, a painting or a photograph or even a video that moves, right? But if we look at the world and we go, oh, we're going to take a picture of it or paint it because it means something to me, right? Then we're reading the world as something that contains meaning out there. Well, the problem with that is that that's kind of only one way of looking at how to see the world. So people started to begin to to question, well, where does all this meaning stuff come from? Is it out there or is it in us? Is it with this God person? Blah, 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 right? So the semiotics, the study of semiotics is at least one little start in how do we communicate something that's presumably called meaning with words and through sounds and moving pictures and that kind of thing. So one would wonder, without the Enlightenment and science, where would we be? We wouldn't be watching movies. But you could also argue that maybe we wouldn't be understanding even this Gary Larson comic if we hadn't first been introduced to painting and two-dimensional representations of space. And those are conventions. Those are visual conventions that people have used for a long, long time. And some of those conventions have very sophisticated grammars. And we'll call those like language. So this first part of the Visual Fluencies lecture is about looking closer at some of those mechanics of how images are created.